My number 2 pick and the number 3 overall pick of the Week 14 Sunday six-pack, I am going with the biggest edge that I see outside of, my numbers are a little higher on the Falcons. So I get that. But this is the biggest edge I think I see kind of consensus at our pro models. And that's the Pittsburgh Steelers plus 2.5 at the Buffalo Bills. And I think, listen, we've talked about the Steelers, and I actually thought they would beat Washington last week, but we've talked about this.
I saw on the app.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I was rooting for the Steelers to win so we could get Buffalo plus 3 here.
Yeah,
and then I wanted Buffalo to lose to San Fran, and then that would have been a slam spot because we definitely would have got, I think, Bills plus 3.
This is not a good Monday for me. It was like Steelers blow the lead, Bills, and then Zach, and I had the Singletary under because I love that Niner run defense. And then Zach Moss, Singletary gets hurt, and I'm like, okay, good. And then Zach Moss gets hurt, and Singletary gets every carry. I was like, oh, this is not going well. So one of those Mondays. But this is how you do it. You have to. It's kind of like being a cornerback, who gets burned, and you have to come back. You can't be scared to come back and play man coverage again. So we're going right back with the Steelers plus 2.5. I can't believe I'm betting on the Steelers here, but this number, I actually have the Steelers as slight favorites. So this number is pretty off to me, and I think it is a reaction to what we saw in 2 national TV games back to back last Monday night. And listen, the Steelers, they're not quite as good on defense as they were earlier in the year. Why? Because all their linebackers keep blowing out their knees. So with that being said, this Buffalo team, is one that the strength of schedule does pull their numbers down a little bit. They have beaten some kind of average to below average teams. The Steelers still are going to have kind of the same issues they have on offense as well. But all that being said, I think this is a very evenly matched 2 teams. And Buffalo, you mentioned it. There's not really a big home field advantage this year. So that's another factor kind of playing in to where I have the Steelers as a slight favorite. They're plus 2.5. I think that this is a great spot for Mike Tomlin now. He kind of, and I thought it would happen last week, which is why I thought the Steelers would handle Washington. But I thought after that game against Baltimore, and I think Tomlin tried to do it, he called them out. He said they sucked and whatnot, but he didn't really get his point across because they still won that game. But now you have the rah-rah Tomlin spot back a little bit where he has some real kind of teaching points to go off of. And you look at the Steelers, and we've talked about this, and there's kind of like some very specific spots where you back them and where you fade them. Mike Tomlin as an underdog, 36-18 against the spread, 67%. Mike Tomlin off a loss, 42-30, 58% against the spread. And then Sean McDermott is just 43% against the spread off a multi-game straight up win streak. So love how the situational spot kind of aligns for the Steelers to bounce back here against. And again, this is, even with, Steelers losing a couple linebackers, this is still going to be a tough matchup for Josh Allen. And Josh Allen has been inconsistent, from week to week. Like, he played well against San Francisco. He played poorly against the Chargers. Played poorly, I think, a couple weeks ago against the Jets. Like, we've seen this kind of up and down from him. And I think, in this spot with the focused Steelers team that's a little bit angry and kind of just a great spot for their coach now to get his point across. I think you're going to see a whole different Steelers team than the one we kind of saw just sleepwalking through those last 2 primetime games.
I have a lot on this game. The one thing I will say, the Bills' defense is definitely trending in the right direction. During the bye week, they made some scheme changes. The way that they're using some of their linebackers. Edmonds, they're lining him more outside. They're being more aggressive with A.J. Klein. Now they have Matt Milano back, which is just huge across the board. Johnson, their slot is playing a little better. They don't have Josh Norman in there any longer. Levi Wallace is in. There's just a lot of pieces that are playing well. Some of their defensive linemen are playing better. So they cleaned some things up on the defensive side of the ball during the bye. The offensive line is playing well of late. I mean, the Bills have looked good of late, but there's no doubt that this is, a direct overreaction to what happened on the same night last week. You saw the Bills look so good against the 49ers, and then the Steelers lose to Washington. So on the surface, it's a buy low, sell high spot that is creating line value on the Steelers. But you have to keep in mind, the Steelers, this is their third game in 11 days. That's brutal. You mentioned Robert Spillane, another linebacker that's hurt. Bush is already done. Joe Hayden, their corner, he's hurt. I don't know if he can go. Nelson, their other corner, he's hurt. So this is a really banged up defense that has played one of the easiest schedules in the NFL. They've also benefited from a league-leading 23 turnovers, part of which is because they played so many backup quarterbacks. And I mean, Brian Dable for the Bills has just been amazing, by the way. And the Bills lead the league in third down conversion percentage. That's going to be a battle in this game. The Steelers there's going to be some potential wind in this game. The Steelers can't run the ball. It is a huge issue. And I've been saying it all year. I mean, Pitt run blocking. Let's take a look at PFF. Their starting offensive linemen out of 183 qualified offensive linemen. This is where they rank their respective rankings out of 183 offensive linemen in run blocking. 171st. 162nd, 160th, 102nd, 127th. They don't have a single offensive lineman in the top 100 in run blocking. They have the lowest expected rushing yards per attempt in the league. Their offensive line is 30th in adjusted line yards. I mean, it's bad. And they're number one in adjusted sack rate on offense because Ben just gets rid of the ball so quick. It's just these 7-8 yard passes. That's hard to sustain drives, especially when you're dropping 7-8 balls a game as they are right now. Now, it's probably, you would expect some regression there with the drops, but it's hard to move up and down the field when there's no explosiveness. Pittsburgh, 29th in explosive play rate. Buffalo, top 5 in that department. And Pitt's aggressive D, they can give up big plays, especially if their secondary's banged up. And Buffalo, where they've been most vulnerable, is against the run and giving up explosive runs. That's not Pittsburgh's game at all. So there's a bunch of things to be worried about with Pittsburgh. And it's crazy. You went with Pittsburgh last week against Washington. You were playing them live to win. And then this week, we were telling everyone Pittsburgh's overrated because of their offense. Now their defense is banged up. But at the end of the day, I've preached it all the time. This is the classic Tomlin spot.
Yes.
He is think about their last couple games. They played the Ravens backups. How flat were they? They played Washington. How flat were they? Even against Jacksonville, it was like 0-0 through. We know how bad Jake Luton is now. They just come out flat for these spots where they're favorites. He's the least profitable coach as a double-digit favorite in our database over the past 20 years. But Tomlin, as a road dog against winning teams, 17-5 against the spread, 77.3%, covering by an average of 6 points per game. That's Brady after a loss type numbers. Number one of 124 coaches in our Action Labs database, 15-7 straight up in those games. That's as an underdog on the road against a team over 500. He's 15-7 straight up in those games. So it's a rah-rah spot. Off of a loss, we're getting disrespected now. So the Steelers will be fired up for this one. I mentioned there could be wins, so keep an eye on that. I keep going back and forth on this. I think at the end of the day, I do think the line is a little overvalued, and there's value in in Pittsburgh. And I've tried to adjust for the injuries and the situation and the matchup. And there's still some value in Pittsburgh here. It's a good tease piece too. So if you want to tease Pittsburgh, which has come across to 2.5, you can tease them up to 8.5. Perfect tease spot.
I wish they would just use, they signed one of the best fullbacks in the league in Derek Watt, who's what's his name's brother? Why can't I? What's the Watt?
AJ.
No. But what's the Watt on Pittsburgh's name? Why am I blanking? The other
TJ.
Yeah, TJ's brother and JJ's brother, Derek. They have him. They have like a fullback, and they have Vance McDonald, who's a blocking tight end. They never make their third tight end active, so they're just completely uncommitted to the run. I would like to see them just activate that third tight end and at least, give opposing defenses something to think about, because you've seen this, running is not all just, okay, our line is terrible, we can't get pushed, we can't run. We saw the Giants last week, and the Giants don't have a great offensive line. The Seahawks have been great in run defense. But what did the Giants do? They just went big. They went 3 tight ends. They know Evan Ingram is not going to, and that line is not going to be able to block Seattle one-on-one. But you put 3 tight ends in heavy formation there, and it's a whole different game. And I just wish Pittsburgh would do some of that. I think it would really help their offense instead of, because you're not only just doing the same thing every time with with these short passes, but you're not even giving the defense really any, much to think about. Because even if you are going, it's some different personnel group, it's still kind of the same formation. It's just Eric Ebron instead of Ray McLeod or James Washington. So I do think the Steelers and Randy Fichtner need to switch it up. But yeah, I do like I like the situational spot for Pittsburgh. I do think the drops will regress. And again, I just have Buffalo. I also knocked them down a little for strength of schedule. So it's really that simple. It's just about 2.5. No, about 3 points of value for me on the line.
Be afraid of the Bills, though, man. The Bills are going to have a say in the AFC.
Oh, I love the Bills. They are. Sean McDermott is like, Sean McDermott
staff is awesome.
Up there. Yeah, he's up there. This is not about the Bills.
Brian Daboll, he's going to get a head coaching job.
He's kind of jumped to the top of the list, I think. Like I'm hearing a lot of people say he's the top now. So, yep.
Yeah, he just carved up Robert Saleh last week. Now, granted, the Bills did benefit from a bunch of corners. Richard Sherman was back, but a couple of the other San Fran corners were out, and they had like a 4th string in the slot, and they just abused San Fran. But yeah, that whole staff's doing a tremendous job. And Josh Allen, if he can just be more consistent, as you said, look out.